welcome back, George. Right off the bat, this is not your perfect TBR hijack because we met you at Quail Ridge Books during Christopher Rocchio's signing for Disquiet Gods. What a great night. We had a wonderful time. It was so amazing hanging out with you and Christopher and everyone there. And at that time, we went upstairs of this beautiful indie bookstore. We sat in these plush chairs with a beautiful backdrop of all these books, and we had a wonderful, enlightening conversation of what you like to read, and I got to pick your brain, and I kind of tried to get under your skin as a reader, and I made a pick for you, and all of that footage would normally run, and then we would come to this after you have read the book, and we would talk about the book. But here's the snafu. Jacob needed the SD card for work, and he forgot that was on it. So we have all been there. Mm-hmm. Jacob, no one was harder on Jacob than Jacob. Like, Jacob, what did I say? It's like, hey, I said, stuff happens, let it go.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm sure it's okay. I'm sure there's not going to be an angry mob of people with torches and pitchforks. I'm upset at myself.
They're not forming up outside.
Mostly, I feel bad for George for going out of his way to be with us at Quail Ridge.
It was a pleasure, and John, you surprised me. You not only hijacked my TBR, you added a book to my library, so that was awesome. I appreciate.
Oh no, that's the way TBR hijack works, my friend.
Oh really?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but you were so kind to meet us there, and I just feel like I really enjoyed the time we spent with you, and I'm sorry we lost that, but stuff happens, and I think if anything, it just tells me we need to invest in our own SD card for what we do.
Yeah, probably.
But thank George. I cannot thank you enough for spending the time with us and meeting us and spending the time and reading my pick for you. So I want to go over just a little bit since we don't have that footage, just a little bit. Yeah. We were at the Christopher Rocchio signing, so I thought, okay, he's a fan of Christopher Rocchio, obviously. So a framing narrative may be interesting. A bit tendrils into our past, our history, historical fiction might be appealing to him. An anti-hero might be appealing to him, much like Hadrian Marlowe. And I had these things percolating, and I was talking to you. And then where I wanted to take a detour and go off the beaten path for you was to kind of go into a little bit of Gothic horror, which I kind of got from you that you hadn't read or don't read a lot of.
Yeah, those were all right on there. That's what we talked about, and very surprising with where you ended up. I did not expect that. I expected one of the booktube darlings or something, and then you ended up throwing something out of left field from the 80s out there.
Well, and that's, you know what? That's because I make noises when I stand up, and I'm old. And I remember this book so fondly from the 80s. So what I picked for you...
76, actually. I just looked it up.
Yeah, 76. I think I read it in the 80s, but I think it was, 76.
You got big there.
Yeah. So I picked for you Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice.
Yep.
And you have read it?
All the way through, yes.
Okay, so you didn't throw it down in distaste.
No, not at all. it reads, it's not a very long book, so it's not a big chunky thing. 350 pages or so.
Right.
It looks like. It reads really quickly, and her prose, I think, still holds up beautifully. She is a craftsman with the words. It doesn't feel too hoity-toity, but it definitely makes you feel like you're reading a Gothic horror novel. I can see why people... It just takes you to that place, and it changes where she's at.
Yeah, in the classical tradition, the language is just so lush. It's decadent. It's rich. Yeah, absolutely. So what I like to do is I like to go through the 5 categories I go through when I review a book.
Sure. And
kind of see where you fell on each of these categories. So let's start off with world building. And I mean, it's not world building in an epic fantasy or sci-fi way, but did she transport you to Plantation, New Orleans? Did she transport you to France when they fled? Did she do a good job of painting a picture of the past for you and fleshing it out all the way around?
And what are we scoring out? Are we giving the 1 star, a half star?
Let's give it. You can give it anywhere from a 1/4 star to a whole star.
Okay, so they're equally weighted. Okay.
Yes, sir.
I would say a 1/2 star for world building, just because.
Okay.
because I think you can do more. I don't know, like when we go to, I'm not going to spoil it too much, but when you go to mid Europe in the Carpathians, I felt a little bit of it, but I wasn't. I have read that before, and I've read it better. When you read Elizabeth Kostova's The Historian, the way she describes the Carpathians and the rural little countryside, it's a little bit stronger, if that makes sense.
It does. And interesting you say that, because I get such a beautiful picture of New Orleans, as I said, and even Paris. But yeah, going back to the past of where some of these, and again, no spoilers, even though this book came out in 76, just in case we move someone to read it that hadn't yet, when they go even back to the past where some of these immortal characters are born, you're right. It seems like she could have gone deeper into some research.
Yeah, she definitely got the bayou and the French Quarter. She felt that going out in the dark in France and going out in the dark in New Orleans felt very, I was there. I was transported. Yeah. The other one just felt like a car chase in the in a dark rural bumpkin area. That could be Kentucky, could be the Carpathians, it could be Montana. It doesn't matter where it was. It just didn't feel that strong. So half star for me for world building. Half
star. Okay. Yeah. Now The Historian, that is one I haven't read.
Oh, I recommend it. It's from the other side, the other point of view. It's a scholar who's in a library figuring out her PhD, and she's got some family history that is really interesting. And there's a magical book that shows up that she can't get rid of, kind of like a Ouija board. It just keeps showing up, and it takes her on a trip to Europe, and it's amazing.
Oh, so this is on my list, and it's been on my list for a while. So you're hijacking my TR. You're making it bump up a little bit. Okay.
Yeah, I read that back in college 15 years ago, and it was amazing. And I've read it multiple times. One of my favorites.
Okay, so Jacob, can you write that down? Half star for world building, because I didn't grab a pin because I don't know what I'm doing here. But so half star for world building, and you know what? She lived in the Garden District in New Orleans for so many years. So I have, I totally understand why that part was stronger for you. So let's move on to characters. What would you think? Now you have.
I think she gets a full star on that one for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, the framing narrative helps you, get you halfway there, because you're in somebody and they're telling you two stories really, but they're showing you who they were and who they are now. And
I love that. I'm with you. I love that so much.
So good. He comes off so charming and so interesting. And then the book starts and you don't sympathize with him. You're like, oh, he's not that great. And then he has this huge trauma, and then you feel so bad for him. And he's not what you expect out of a vampire. He's he refuses to interact with the normal vampire world that he's presented with. And then at the end, you still don't meet the same person that was in that interview.
Yeah.
And so I will give her this. You could tell that she had all the second and third books in mind. It makes you want to read the second and third book, especially how she reads it.
I like that.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I will, just because, but the way she ended it, it was very cleverly done. There was some craftsmanship there. The characters definitely evolve and change. People you hate in the beginning, you love at the end. People you love in the beginning, you're disgusted with in the end.
Absolutely.
And then people you first meet, oh, that's a dangerous person. You don't really understand how dangerous. Her characters, 100%. I could meet them. I knew who they were. I didn't have faces, but I didn't need to. I knew who they were.
Yeah, I would so agree with that. And I think not only Louis Pontdelac, the main character that is in the framing narrative telling his story, but when he, the little family they start to build with Lestat and Claudia, to me, it's like you end up on a different place with these characters, because as they start to move through their immortality and they start to either try to hold on to their humanity, or they're further along in that journey where they have lost more of their humanity. And it's such a great way to look at humanity in general. These creatures that are trying to hold on to it or lose it, and what does humanity mean, and what does otherness mean? She was really trying to get at that when she wrote this. She had suffered personally just the horrible tragedy of a loss of one of her children. And she was trying to understand humanity and mortality, and all of it came pouring out in this lush Gothic, what I would consider a masterpiece. I do think it holds up. For me, it does anyway. But even once you get outside that little family, she does such an amazing job of some of the other people you meet, Armand and other people, of giving them a rich tapestry of backstory, where they've come from, why they are the way they are. And as it continues to morph and change. So I hope you pick up book 2. If you do, you have to let me know.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
It's on the list, but the TBR is 600 books deep right now. So.
Oh my God. You put me to shame, George. You put me to shame.
Every time somebody says something interesting, I just go to my Goodreads and add it to the list.
Add it on there. Add Vampire Lestat on there.
All right.
I'll hit it up. I'll push for it hard at the end of this. Okay. So we've done world building. We've done characters. Let's look at plot. How would you rate plot on the scale of a quarter star to a full star?
So it promises you an interview with the vampire. You learn his life story. It follows the hero's journey, and it leaves you not where you expect to be. There's definitely more there. So I would give it 3/4 of a star. Is that okay? I think that.
Ask me. This is your score, my friend.
I don't want to be unfair, right?
No. There is no fair. There is no fair. In my book, art goes through a singular person's eyes and touches their soul, and it evokes an emotional response or intellectual response, and no two can ever be the same. So there is no fair. There is no unfair. This is your interpretation and your score.
I think 3/4 of a star is fair. I think it outlines that she does what she's setting out to do in 350 pages really well.
Yeah.
There was a big skips of time that happened page turn, and and that I don't know. I understand why she separates the book the way she does into where each location's apart, but there were really long parts and then really short parts, and you're like, it feels like the pacing's a little off. Like, where is this story going?
Right.
But I enjoyed it, and I think she promises you an interview with the vampire, and at the end of it, I feel like I knew Louis a lot better.
Yeah. Okay. I'll go with that. So we have half, a full, and a 3/4.
Yep.
So for me, the strength of this is not plot. For me, it's character, and so it's a character examination in my book.
But there's a story there. Louis changes.
He is not the same by the end,
and I think the plot does it to him. It's not. I don't think he changes because of his relationships. I think he changes because of what happens in the story, and the sacrifices and the people who make certain decisions, and it leads to his life changing at different points. Like, you can story plot it out. I feel like you can say, what happens with the neighbor, what happens with his brother, with his sister, what happens.
Yes, his family, right?
Yes.
His mortal family moving on to, big stuff there,
And then he goes on a quest. He gets on that ship, and he goes as the hero, and says, I need to find something, and that's the heritage, right? And he's trying to find who these vampires are. He has no reference point besides Lestat, and he says, I'm going to find something out there. And him and Claudia are looking for different things. Yes. And they both find what they're looking for in different ways. And there's payments to that. It doesn't come freely. There's definitely sacrifice and payment to it. And they come back changed, and they come back. They bring it back to their community. They go back to Louisiana, and they have a heritage now that's been established. And so it changes, I think, how vampires work for the rest of America. I would guess the next series talks a lot about that. Yes,
absolutely. It goes deeper and deeper into that. But, it's interesting how you sum that up so beautifully, George, as a hero's journey, because they are looking for heritage and answers. And honestly, it's akin to a spiritual journey for them, right?
Yeah.
With this power and with this longevity, what does it mean? Who are we now? How do we define ourselves? How do we find meaning in that definition, spiritually, metaphysically?
You can feel their disgust when they get to the Carpathians and then what they find there.
Yeah.
It's not what they expected, and then they're like, oh, okay, we get to France. This is more what we expected. This looks a lot more akin to what we were
right. And then that becomes not what they expected.
Wow.
Yeah.
It becomes what Claudia expected, but not the way she wanted it.
Like you say, they were on they're together, but they're on two different journeys.
Quests, yeah.
Two different quests. Absolutely. I'm not sure if she's quite looking for the meaning that Louis is.
No, she was looking to be accepted into that, and she just how they didn't accept her and pushed her away and only wanted Louis was tragic. It was one of the saddest parts because she really wanted what he got, and he wanted something else, and he didn't find any of it.
So true. And in the theme that is opened up so beautifully with Claudia is that theme of abomination, otherness, right? That separation between what we know and are comfortable with and what's outside that line, that I think played out really well in the book. Yeah. So, okay, so what we've done: world building, character, plot. Yeah. Let's look at prose. As a wordsmith, what would you rank Anne Rice?
I think she's approachable and lush, and it's not purple, but it is beautiful. Yeah. I give her a full star there. If I could write like her, I would be very happy in life. She's not writing like Northern Peak or somebody that's really dense. She's not Ulysses or anything like that, but she's not Brandon Sanderson. She's going deeper. She's describing things very beautifully. She puts you in a place and an era. Yes,
yeah, and metaphor. She's using every tool out of the box, and it truly is. There's several times that I remember, and like I said before, it's been a good while since I've read this, but I do remember going back and reading several passages like, oh, geez, that is gorgeous. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
It does border on poetic.
I finished it.
I know you are a writer yourself. So for you to say if you could write like her, I feel like that's as big a compliment as you could possibly put out there.
Yeah. I think she knows. There's a reason why so many people loved it and are addicted to reading her, and why she brought it back. Right? Those people existed. The Gothic writers existed, but she really brought it back and made it mainstream and led to all types of board games and live action role playing stuff with Werewolf, and it was all hers. The goth scene really. She was such a vanguard of that. Yeah, I remember going in the '80s to signings, and I met her several times. And wow, who you would meet in line to meet Anne Rice was worth the trip in and of itself. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so that leaves us just with pace. What would you say? Like you say, the compression is there. She got a lot in as far as character, theme, and everything into a little over 300-page book. What would you rate this with pace? Yeah, I think that was the hardest thing. It wasn't that it didn't read fast. It was that you would be like, when the chapter breaks were in weird places. The parts were very, it wasn't I don't know. It just didn't feel right when I was reading it. It felt a little bit broken. Some things went too long. So when things were short, I wish we had expanded more time in certain places. You could tell that she was more comfortable talking about certain things in certain places. And so it broke up the pace. For me, it's a half star. Half star. Okay. Yeah. So for you, she subverted your expectations and your wishes of where you wanted her to go. And there were some uneven parts. So I get that. I do remember that. There were moments where it's like, oh, I could have lingered there. It's hard to judge, right? Because in a way it's like she left me wanting more. Yeah. But at the same time, I feel a little bit of unsatisfaction because I could have stayed, Yeah, and there was times and places that you didn't really get to, like, I wanted to see more roaming of the streets. I wanted to see him hunt and go through that process, and you really lost that in the middle there. She wasn't interested in exploring that with him, but it changed. It was 70 years of stuff. It's like, hey, there's nothing there. Just skip over to the next step. I wonder if she shied away from that so the audience would still accept him, his humanity, his glimmering bits of humanity, as long as we could, if she didn't show us that. I mean, it's such a loss. Yeah, she just tells us a lot, but doesn't show it to us. And it's like, ooh, give me a little bit. Just I do. I totally see that. Okay, Jacob, you've been writing this down.
I have. So that is a total of 3.75 stars.
That's what I got here.
3.75 stars. So you know what? The way I rate it is like a 4-star for me. A 4-star is kind of that. Oh, that could be like a favorite of mine. You get into 4.5, getting up to 5. That's something that could stand the test of time. So I feel like I didn't completely blow it, George.
No. It was. I'm sorry if I made it sound that way when I was talking.
No, not at all.
It was definitely a good read. It didn't hurt me. I have a very weird scale, so I'm going to read it here. For me, a 1-star is like, hey, did not finish DNF. I gave it half a book, and by then I was not invested. I got very few of those. 2 stars, like I finished it, but it was a genuine waste of time when I got finished with it. Right?
You finished it and wished you hadn't.
Yeah.
I
should have read another book. I should have tried it. A 3 is I enjoyed it while I was reading, but it didn't have staying power. And then a 4 is enjoyable with staying power, not something I will recommend to people. And then a 5-star resonates with my soul in a lifelong manner. That's a Lord of the Rings level type thing. It's rare.
Yeah.
So what I was going to say is about her prose and just how beautiful she was. I was reading, doing highlights, sending it to my friend, and I do Kindle highlights, so I keep it there. And I was like, at the end of the book, I had like 15 highlights, 15 things that really stood out to me, that were really strong. And then I looked at another series, which I will not name here, that had, I've read 3,000, 4,000 pages of, and I had 5 highlights from the 5,000 pages in 3 books.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Some people just write lots of words, and she does so beautifully with so little. Even, if you read a book like this, that's a little bit shorter, the older books, they say so much. They're so precise. They're so intentional with their sentences that there's always a good theme or message or something that feels that gets through to me.
Yeah.
But I gave it a 3.5 originally. I can give you a 3.75 on your scale here, giving equal weights to everything. It's pretty close. I think we got it.
Yeah. Oh, I think it's real close. And it's like, gosh, I see, I'm listening to you, and it's like I'm right there. I think for me, my score is higher, obviously, because of nostalgia factor. And horror is my jam. Like, I just love it. It's my thing, right?
Yeah.
And I've met her several times, and I know where this came from personally. What she got on the page. But this is such a hearkening back in that lush language to those romantics, Shelley and others. To me, it's just there is so much there that is just beautiful, and I would love some people to start picking the book up again. I know there's a lot out there that do, but I would love more and more to do it, because I just think, like you say, man, in 350 pages, there's a lot of beauty there and a lot of examination there.
Yeah, it makes you reflect on what makes you human, what it is, why are we spending this time on Earth, and what are we doing with it, and what's important, and what we can do with that little time that we have left.
Right. And if somebody gave you all the time in the world, those questions wouldn't go away. Those questions they would still plague you. Those grand questions would still plague you, and you'd still have to go on that hero's quest and that hero's journey to find meaning, even if someone gave you all the time in the world. It's just, it resonates with me. I will tell you, book 2, the vampire Lestat, picks up with Lestat after he has buried himself for a many, many, many year slumber. And he comes into the decadent Wall Street greed driven world of the 80s.
Okay.
And he fits right in, becoming a arena level rock star.
Oh, okay. Well, we knew he was an operatic singer, so.
Right. And it does not, and he's a rock star, and he's doing like it's a hair metal band feel, and he's doing all these power ballads about the world of the vampires. And this does not sit well with the ruling members of that world.
Okay.
And that's
not where I thought it was going. I thought it was going to go immediately from here. Once the interviewer gets there, he was going to go to that street and find Lestat and get his interview, I thought.
It's the interview. Well, I won't say anything else, but no, that's where it goes next. And Lestat for me is, this was such a spiritual, personal journey for that author. I just think Lestat, when she starts to deal with who she called her brat prince, and from book 2 on, it's much more centered on Lestat. And she starts to really get her hooks in there, it just becomes this ribbled, ripping yarn that you just can't put down, layered with all the beautiful Gothic romantic trappings. So if you pick it up, and I get it, 600 books of a TBR, and you're such a great sport to pick this up. But if you pick up book 2, George, you have to reach out and let me know.
I will let you. I will. It'll be interesting because as I was reading Lestat, there was she put little foreshadowing of Lestat's background and who he was and how he ended up over here and why was he so set on not letting Louis be exposed to the greater vampire world. It'll be interesting for sure.
Yeah, and Lestat, who you would not so much imagine from the first book, the books coming up and after is Lestat basically clawing back his humanity that he has lost bit by romantic bit. All he has to overcome all of these things that he's done himself and have been done to him, and he has watched done in this depraved life, and start to claw and bring the humanity back to himself. So it's a very interesting journey, man. I got it. For me, I got to put it up there with Hadrian Marlowe as an anti-hero's journey, or as we were just talking, the last Silver Saint, Gabriel de Leon, in the J. Christoph books now. That same kind of thing, that clawing back. I've gone so far, I've lost so much. I'm trying to
seen
claw
so
back.
much.
Yeah, absolutely, seen so much. Trying to claw back my humanity. So yeah, Gabriel de Leon. I wonder if that's just a quick nod to Lestat de Lioncourt.
I would assume so, right?
Yeah,
he was J. Christoph. I'm assuming he grew up with Anne Rice. That was
reading his stuff, man. You would think so, because that's some lush language as well, and that's a whole nother review. But George, dude, what can I say, man? It was so cool hanging out with you. It is so amazingly generous of you to give up more time and give up the time and read the book that I threw at you, as opposed to the 600 that you want to get to. I just can't thank you enough for spending the time with us. And hey, when are we going to see you again? If there's another signing or something around, we got to get together.
Yeah, I'm always around. We're only a couple hours away, so if you ever want to hook up, we got it. And I hope I saw that you got Witchy Eye, which I recommended to try to destroy your TBR there. Have you started it? What's up? Where is
I have not started it. I hope to start it in June, but my June is getting like stacked up but I am going to get to that. I cannot wait to get to that, because if Christopher Rocchio and you say this guy JD Butler is a genius, then it's like I absolutely want to pick it up.
And I'm not sure if you do audio, but I would do immersive reading where I have the audio while reading it, because there's lots of accents, so it's written in there. He goes all over the America, and so yeah, I recommend it for sure.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, no, that is, I swear I'm going to get to that as quickly as I humanly can. And it's like I keep trying to put it on there, but then Buddy Reads and stuff get in the way. But it's like I'm as quick as I
know all about
that. You were hijacked. I've been hijacked. It happens.
It does.
It happens. But yeah, no, maybe we'll get together. I'm trying to think. I was trying to think what's the next... I don't leave the Fortress of Solitude often, but like maybe a couple times a year I'll leave for like, I think the next flick I have to leave my Fortress of Solitude for is Deadpool. Maybe if you're...
I love Deadpool.
Maybe if you're in for that, maybe I'll make the drive. We'll come that way and we'll do a movie night or something.
We have IMAX. We have plenty of theaters over here we can do it at, so that'd be great.
Well, I mean, in my little town, we don't have that. That's why I'm saying it might be worth my drive. If you'd be up for it, to meet me for a movie night or something like that.
Would love to have you over.
Awesome, man. George,
take care.
Thank you again, my friend.